part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question to I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, do you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk, all the way to 10 o'clock. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for a rollercoaster ride through 3 thrilling hours of breaking news, challenging views and topical debate. Get stuck in, get on the phone and get on the show by calling me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. That's 0344 499 1000. It's Monday, May the 19th. Here's what's coming up. Will this forever be known as Surrender Day after two-tier Keir blatantly betrayed Brexit and sold furiously voters straight down the river? Why does this odd little man believe that his sellout of fishing, of farming and of our borders is a triumph for Britain? Can't he see that caving into Brussels' demands is exactly what we don't want? And while the pusillanimous Prime Minister seals a stupefyingly one-sided deal that makes us subordinate to EU power, what does he get back? The right of Brits to stand in the quicker EU EQs at passport control. Big deal. I rather liked not standing in the EU queues, disassociating myself from the Brussels losers, so I don't want to go back to those queues anyway. Big deal. What on earth does Starmer think he's playing at? 0344 499 1000. In other news, just as we told you they would, more of the Iranian terror plot suspects turn out to be asylum seekers who arrived here illegally on small boats and lorries, proving that we know nothing about so many of the unlawful foreigners who we just let stay. Like the Egyptian guy allowed to claim asylum despite serving 6 years in jail for trying to smuggle a ton of cannabis into Italy, living in a taxpayer-funded London flat, claiming welfare benefits for him, his wife and 12-year-old daughter, while running a £12 million people smuggling racket, trafficking nearly 4,000 Libyans across the Mediterranean to Europe. How many more dangerous immigrants have we allowed to stick around? No questions asked. 0344 499 1000. Also tonight, the shame of Gary Lineker, forced to leave the BBC in anti-Semitic disgrace after sharing a horrible Jew-hating post on Instagram, banned from hosting next year's FA Cup and World Cup after crossing the line and going too far on social media. He says to be silent on Gaza is to be complicit in the horror there. Well, he was totally silent after Hamas's October the 7th atrocity. So was St. Gary complicit in that bunch of terrorist scumbags' crime against humanity? 03444991000. Plus the anti-Semitic scenes as they tried to edit out of Eurovision what happened, where the baying crowds' be kind wonderfulness didn't extend to the poor Israeli contestant who they tried to boo off the stage. But great to see Israel come in second. Not everybody hates them, it seems, including me. A lot better than Britain's hapless girl group Remember Monday, who came 19th out of 26 and received the dreaded null point in the public vote. 03444991000. Also tonight, the teaching of misinformation to Britain's kids as moronic teachers tried to pretend that Stonehenge was built by black people, despite there being no evidence of that whatsoever. Wouldn't it be preferable if our children were taught the truth, as opposed to the propaganda lies left-wing teachers want to brainwash our classrooms with? 03444991000. And finally, it's the 7th anniversary of Harry and Meghan's fairy tale wedding in Windsor. They were the caring, sharing, golden couple who were going to change the world. How's that working out for them? 03444991000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday night together. And straight off the bat, let's go over to my first guest for the first hour. She'll be with me until 8 p.m. Really pleased to welcome Talk's fabulous international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Hi, Isabel.
Hi. There's so much to talk about, isn't there, with this absolute disastrous Brexit sellout and our Iranian asylum seeker suspects, and where are we going to begin?
Well, I want to go big on the Surrender Summit. I mean, it's extraordinary what's gone on in London. As I said in my monologue, what I find bemusing, almost comedic, is the prospect, the spectacle of this guy, Keir Starmer, selling out the Brexit boat, betraying Brexit, and then turning round to us and thinking we should all be pleased. Look what I've achieved for Britain, it's fantastic. We don't want you doing these deals. We don't want to subjugate Britain to the EU's demands. We don't want any of this. Why are you doing it? And what do we get back? The right to stand in EQs, to be a bit faster at passport control when travelling around the EU area. Well, big deal. I actually have really, over the past 7 years or so, really enjoyed not joining the Brussels losers, standing in the independent Britain queue. So I don't even want that concession. I want to stand with Brits, with proud, independent, Brexit voting Brits. I don't want to stand with the Brussels crowd. So that is his only concession. I don't see the point of it. We'll talk about that in a little while. But first, Isabel, I'm not sure whether we should be us blowing our own trumpet is the right phrase here. It's not. But we were depressingly right, as we said all along. 2 weeks ago, something like 8 or 9 Iranian nationals were arrested all around Britain, rather dramatically, forced to the ground, coppers bashing into homes all the length and breadth of the country. And we said at the time, why is it we're not allowed to know about these people? Where did they come from? Are they small boat migrants? Did they get here illegally? Are they asylum seekers? Why won't the government tell us that? Is it another Southport style cover-up where they just don't want to give us this information because it's embarrassing for them? Anyway, we were given the usual claptrap. Oh, that would affect the police investigation. No, it wouldn't. And anybody, any sentient human being can work out that knowing how these people got here would be irrelevant to any police investigation. So they didn't tell us. They hid behind that legal barrier. Last week, around about this time last week, I think you and I were able to reveal that indeed one of them at least one of them was an asylum seeker, an illegal migrant living in a migrant's house, taxpayer funded, in Rochdale, where he was plotting, we're told, a terror attack on the Israeli embassy. We're paying for that guy. He's in a migrant's house. He's an asylum seeker. He's a terrorist, or an alleged terrorist. So that, and what did we find out this weekend? 3 more of them are indeed asylum seekers, people who were allowed to stay here, people about whom we didn't really know anything, but in the manner of these things, as we do with something like 50% of every illegal foreigner that applies for asylum, we just granted it to them. And guess what? Turns out that these 3 characters who ended up in Westminster Magistrates Court on Saturday were allegedly plotting to kill a Persian language journalist who worked for a satellite TV show here. So these people are all in jail. So yes, that's 4 asylum seekers. I guarantee you they all are. But once again, just as in Southport, the authorities, the police, the government won't tell us how these people got here, what is their immigration status, for no other reason than it is embarrassing to our government, who just let people come. They just let them come in, claim to stay, and then we let them. It's an embarrassment for this government, so they won't tell us. This is a disgrace, isn't it?
It's so much more than an embarrassment. It's actually a national emergency. It's a national security crisis. And it's so painful to be right, in a sense. You know, you said we were right. It's one of those ones where it gives you no real pleasure to be right, because it's so damn serious. And you know what they've done here? You know, they obviously they knew right away that these were either, I suspect they were refugees rather than asylum seekers, though there may have been a mix of both. So refugees having been granted asylum and the right to remain. But we haven't been given any.
Well, the 3 on Saturday, one of them was a small boat migrant. Now, I think it might have been 2, and 1 came across on a lorry. So these people were illegal migrants who then went on to claim asylum. Indeed.
So they came over here under bluntly false pretenses, because the only reason they would have been allowed to stay is because they would have pretended that they were being persecuted by the Iranian regime, or for whatever reason, whether it was their politics or their sexuality or whatever other claptrap they invented. So, and as it happens, they are now accused of, we suspect, presumably they will say they're not guilty of this, they are now accused of the most serious of crimes in our country. And we can broaden this out and look at it, since there's now an active case. We can't go too much more into detail now, justifiably, because charges have been brought. But we can broaden this out to ask the very, very simple question: what kind of government repeatedly and continually allows people from hostile regimes, from rogue states that are our enemy, to come into this country on whatever pretense they may make up, and has a basic default policy of not returning those people to the hostile regime? I don't know any other country in the world, apart from possibly some, moronic lefty EU member states, that would think that that was a way to protect their own people. Oh, so you come from a hostile regime, you come from a country where the government, if we could even call it that, is completely nutty and wishes evil on our country and our people. So come on in, guys, and we're going to look after you, and we'll fund you, and you can stay at the taxpayers' pleasure. I mean, this is just completely bonkers.
Yeah, and you know, Isabel, why these people didn't tell us anything about themselves. They wouldn't want to, because they have evil intent towards this country. They're Iranian nationals who were plotting harm on us, on this nation. The reason they didn't tell us was because they don't have to. When illegal migrants arrive illegally in this country on small boats or under lorries or however they do it, there is no legal requirement for them to be interviewed about the method of their transport, who they are, what their background is. It's completely voluntary. So guess what? 14 out of every 15 asylum seekers who arrive here, illegal migrants who arrive here, decline. They say, you know, on balance, I won't agree to an interview by Home Office officials or the police. So that's why we don't know. Again, absolute insanity on the part of a government that is supposed to, its primary duty is to keep the people of this country safe. In what way are they keeping us safe? Letting in thousands and thousands of foreigners about whom we know nothing.
For all we know, Kev, there may have been half a dozen or a dozen more hostile Iranians that have come over in the last few days, plotting any number of things against the UK. I say, why take the risk? We don't owe Iran or people that may represent or be operatives for the Iranian regime, we don't owe them anything, nothing at all. And I'm afraid if that means that a few genuine Iranian dissidents who despise the regime as much as they rightly should do get turned down for asylum, well, sorry, you know, maybe they can seek asylum in a country which is more closely aligned to theirs. I don't know, but I think that I would rather run the risk of a few genuine dissidents not being accepted in the UK automatically than I would to say, look, we can just, we must by default let anyone come in. Yeah. And we have this policy that we don't return to, fundamentally, we don't return to Iran or Afghanistan or Syria. Why? Because all those countries...
They should be the first countries we return people to.
100%, yeah.
Let me just, as I say, I don't, boasting is not the thing to be doing here. This is us about 10 days ago, because we've been banging this drum now for 2 weeks, right after that big raid on that Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago, where the government said, yes, this is us getting tough on dangerous migrants. Well, this is you and I discussing this about 10 days ago. It's reasonable to speculate that the reason the government doesn't want us to know, just like they didn't want us to know about Axel Rudakabana up in Southport, is the circumstances of these guys, these Iranian detainees who are still under arrest, being interrogated, not yet charged, would embarrass the government. They would be embarrassed because it would highlight the horrendous nature of what's worrying, what's scary about this migrant crisis, that we are not only letting in thousands and thousands and thousands of illegal foreigners who break into our country. We're not only doing that, we're doing so while knowing absolutely nothing about them. Now, today, and I found this really annoying. I told my friend Mike Graham, I said, you want to get into this? This was last night. I said, on the breakfast show. It looks to, Isabel and I have been talking about this, and we reckon, we're pretty certain that these Iranian suspects, these terror suspects, are asylum seekers or possibly just illegal migrants. So that's what we've been saying now for the best part of 2 weeks, and everything we've said is now being confirmed, that they were indeed asylum seekers, people allowed to stay about whom we know nothing. Now, you mentioned about our ridiculous policies concerning Iran. You know, in fact, if you want to be an illegal migrant pitching up in this country, you're quite right, Isabel. The best thing for you to say is, well, I'm Iranian, I'm an Afghan. Oh, well, we never send people back to those countries, so you can stay. That's our policy. Well, it's pretty much accepted that the terror plot for which these people were all arrested, the people behind that are the notorious Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, who are prescribed, prohibited all over the world by loads of countries, but not by Britain. We allow this well-known terrorist organisation to operate with impunity in our midst. And over the weekend, the government said that if you get caught cooperating with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, you will be prosecuted. Why? You haven't made them illegal. They're not an illegal organisation. So our incoherence about how we deal with Iranians, and more to the point, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, undoubtedly a terrorist organisation that we have failed to prescribe. The way we deal with them beggars belief.
Well, it's not the only one. I mean, the Muslim Brotherhood as well. We have a bit of a strange policy towards, and other parts of the world, parts of the Middle East, are pretty horrified by our laxity towards these groups. I don't get it. I really don't. There ought to be an absolute outcry over this. And why isn't there? Because people's attention spans are naturally quite short, and that's what the government has banked on by leaving a good gap between when all this happened, the initial drama and the big Commons statement, the urgent statement to the parliamentarians. They've left such a gap now, and then they've got all this other drama going on, so they're banking on people kind of just saying, oh, well, shrug, shrug. But this is not a shrug, shrug situation. And at some point, what is going to happen is that one or more of these individuals that we usher in from rogue states is going to do something that does harm British citizens or other people living in our country. And at that point, everyone's going to be wringing their hands going, how on earth could this happen? But just on this occasion, the alleged plot was thwarted, and so the government to some extent has got away with it. There's another reason, by the way, the Tories are being very quiet about this, because I strongly suspect that some or even most of these asylum seekers or refugees came in on the Tories' watch.
Yeah, I bet you they did. And there's one last point to make, which is intriguing. We can't really go into it because it is an ongoing police investigation. But these 8 or 9 Iranian nationals who were arrested while the security services and the police and Yvette Cooper were boasting about how we're keeping you safe. Look at this, look, dramatic action. You know, we foiled a terror plot to attack the Israeli embassy in London. Actually, no one has been charged in connection with that. The 3 who appeared in court were charged with plotting to allegedly attempt to kill a Persian-speaking journalist here, an Iranian independence campaigner, not the Israeli embassy. The only one other of the suspects has been charged and bailed, not to do with the Israeli embassy. And incredibly, 4 have been released without charge. 4 of the original detainees, after 2 weeks, released without charge. A 5th has been let out on bail. So this Israeli embassy terror plot seems to have fallen apart. So we should be very careful, watch this situation carefully, because it looks to me as if the big plot these detainees, these arrestees were accused of, has come to nothing, and they've managed to find something else to chuck at them. But think of this, though. 4 have been released without charge, back on the streets. 1 has been released on bail. Not quite, I think, the security triumph that Yvette Cooper and the gang tried to make out, but we'll follow that case with interest. When we come back, I'm afraid it's time for Keir's Brexit betrayal. That next, Isabel. Stay tuned.
the great EU surrender by the UK is taking place as we speak, and at every level it sounds like a disaster.
Yeah.
My constituents of Boston and Skegness, my fishermen in Boston, will be absolutely spitting mad on the news that it appears that Starmer, in the face of a request from the EU to extend the deal for 4 years, he said, no, that's fine, have 12, why not?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, Keir Starmer's surrender summit today. I mean, it's truly shocking. He sold Brexit Britain straight down the river, has completely betrayed the Leave vote, made a big song and dance of what we've achieved today is what people voted for last year. I think he thinks that when people voted Labour, this is what they wanted. But what he's actually achieved is the opposite. The very opposite, the polar opposite of what people voted for, far more importantly than last year, but in 2016, the Brexit vote. What have we got out of it? I don't understand what it is that why he's allowed all of this with so little in return. So he's allowed free movement. That's back now for anyone under 35, so there goes that. There goes that form of border control. He's completely caved into European trawler demands. Apparently, the British proposal was, we'll let you fish British waters for 4 years. The EU lot, the Brussels man, so no, 12. So Keir just went, all right, 12, you know, so 12 years. He's sold us down the river with the farmers as well. There are bad deals to do with food regulation, with veterinary regulation. We now have to come back under European trading rules and regulations. And what we've got back for it, it seems to me, is the ability to bid for EU military and security contracts when they become available, which France will veto. We will never get those deals because France will make sure we don't have them. And the other big concession, I mean, I can see the bunting all over London, champagne corks popping. He's managed to get us a deal so that we can now stand in the shorter EQ passport controls with all the Europeans, with the EU country members. As I said earlier, I don't want to actually stand in those queues. I'm proud to not stand in those queues. I've really enjoyed not joining the Europeans and going with all the independent nations elsewhere. So I don't even want that anyway. And in any case, that's just ridiculous to say, look, I've managed to get you shorter queues at passport control. Oh, big deal. He has sold us out like never before. This is epic, isn't it?
Look at him. I mean, the picture you just showed of him there looked like he was at a funeral, and actually it feels like he was at a funeral, like the funeral of Brexit, and Brexit is going to have to be revived by the next government. I mean, it is astonishing. I can't believe the Labour Party are pumping out this stuff, you know, showing before this deal, they show a picture of people queuing at an airport, and then afterwards they show a picture of saying, post this deal, this will be you on the beach. It's so patronising. Do they honestly think that the people who voted for Brexit for very, very solid reasons, otherwise known as sovereignty and control of our borders, are somehow going to be bought off by the prospect of maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe even 15 minutes less queuing once a year when they go on their summer holidays, or twice a year, whatever it may be. It's beyond patronising, isn't it? And here's another one they prepared earlier. They did what they always do. I've been in politics and political journalism for so long, I know these tricks. So what they do, they get the Treasury press people to do a little ring round of all the big businesses they can think of, and get them to add their name to a list of people that are going to approve the deal. And then they publish a long list to try and make it look really impressive, saying, here are all the organisations that are for the deal. And sure enough, it's a bunch of big business. Of course, they want deals like this because, for a start, they get cheaper labour. Life becomes easier for them to make more money. So they've got one column going for the deal. It's like 25 big business. And then they've got against the deal, Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage and someone else that they've thought of. Well, here's who else is against the deal: the British people. And, you know, you patronise us at your peril.
Yeah, I totally agree. And of course, they're also trying to play up the fact that Keir has signed a deal that will allow us to sell British burgers and British bangers on the continent. Because, of course, Wolves sausages, you know, massive amount of sales in Paris and Lyon and Rome and so on. And so we don't sell any sausages on the only British people like British sausages. So that's just nonsense. It's a nonsense. As I say, I cannot see what it is that we have got back for everything he's given away today. He's just given away so much, all of these concessions, and all he's got back is we can bid for some military contracts that the French will make sure 100% we never get, and also shorter queues at the airport in the EU, you know, electronic passport control queues. I mean, it's pathetic, isn't it?
Well, I was talking to Peter Cardwell about this earlier on Jeremy's show. Jeremy's off on holiday at the moment. Maybe I wonder whether he'll benefit from these shorter queues as he makes his way back to Britain, along with swarms of young people aged under 35 that are now going to be able to be coming to Britain, no doubt bringing their dependents as well. Yeah. Honestly, I think the politics of this are going to be absolutely fascinating, because we haven't dissected it yet, but really all that most people are going to come away with on this is return of free movement of people. And Keir Starmer and his cronies can try and spin it as they want and say it's only that, you know, you're only going to be allowed to come here for a couple of years, and, you know, we'll have checks and balances and it'll be limited numbers. Absolute nonsense to all of that. We all know our own ineptitude at controlling numbers and borders. So people are going to know there's a return of free movement, and that basically Starmer has sold out our fishing industry and has opened the gateway to our seas being ever more plundered by rapacious EU fisher people, or whatever it is that Ursula von der Leyen wanted to call them. Fisherwoman. Did you hear that? Fisherwoman.
Did he call them fish? Did she call them fisherwoman?
They literally, both Starmer and Ursula von der Leyen talked about fisherwoman. If you don't know anything else about this, it sums it up, really, doesn't it?
It does. So he calls this the EU reset. It's the EU rejoin in all but name. We now will be bossed around by the EU. We'll be told what to do in return for not very much at all. What I find extraordinary is the hopelessness of Keir Starmer's political antenna. That you could see that he genuinely thought today that, well, I've done a deal with the EU, because he's so thrilled by it in his EU bubble world. He genuinely thinks that the people of Britain, oh, Keir's played a blinder there. Wow, he's brought us back into closer alignment with Brussels. That's what we voted for in 2016. Why is he so stupid that he can't understand that what he's been doing today, as I said earlier, is not what the British people want. It's the polar opposite of what they want. Why doesn't he know this? Why can't he work this out?
I just genuinely don't think he spends enough time outside his immediate circle of people that all think the same. You know, I would love him to just go and knock on the doors of, or just go walking around and talking to people in some of the tougher parts of the UK, the people who are most affected by mass uncontrolled immigration and what it has done to wages and living standards and so on. Go and talk to those people and ask them if they're thrilled about the notion of having a little bit less time in a queue in return for yet more people coming to the UK. I don't think so. Of course, big business likes it, because big business always preferred to have things easy, to be able to import instead of training up British people. They always preferred to be able to import willing workers from overseas. And, you know, this is another worry about it. If we've got a lot of enthusiastic, energetic young people from other parts of Europe where people don't get paid by the state to sit on their backsides and do nothing when they're perfectly capable of working, if those people are coming back to the UK to fill the jobs that unfortunately so many of our young and able people refuse to do, how is that going to do anything to reduce our ballooning welfare bill?
It's not going to do anything to do that. It's just going to make it much, much worse. Isabel, when we come back, we're going to talk about Gary Lineker. Let me put this question out to the audience. He's stepping down after next Saturday, the very final day of the Premier League agenda this season. So in other words, he was going to do the FA Cup next year and the World Cup next year. Because of his anti-Semitic behaviour in the last week or so, he now will not be doing this. But because he shared this blatant Jew-hating Nazi imagery post on Instagram, because he shared that and therefore implicitly approved of it, because that was blatantly anti-Semitic, blatantly Jew-hating. Why is he being allowed this last day? Why don't they sack him now? You know, he's leaving in shame and disgrace. Why allow him this last day on Saturday? Take it away from him. Do you think? What do you reckon? 03444991000. Should Gary Lineker go right now? After 26 years at the BBC, should he be shown the red card right now? Go away. You're not doing next Saturday. You've posted something egregiously anti-Semitic. We've had enough. Off you go. 03444991000. Isabel and I will discuss the Lineker issue after this break.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. By the way, one other call I'd like to hear from you. Has Keir Starmer sold us down the river? Has he betrayed Brexit with his horrible surrender summit today? I think it's an atrocious act of treachery by our Prime Minister, just absolutely ignoring everybody who voted for Brexit in... for breakfast, yeah. I voted for breakfast. For Brexit in 2016. Let me know. 0344 499 1000. Welcome back, Isabel. Before we discuss Gary Lineker, he put this out today, a sort of grovelling type apology to excuse why. The truth of it is, it's such a shame because he was a good football presenter. He's a likeable guy in many ways, but he has this side to him. He's got to virtue signal his left-wing credentials to suck up to his BBC North London friends for some reason, and his unwise tweeting has ended up with him in disgrace. He's leaving the BBC after 26 years as their top football host in disgrace under an anti-Semitic cloud. That's really sad, but here he is excusing his abysmal behaviour.
I've stood up for minorities and humanitarian issues and against all forms of racism all of my life, including, of course, anti-Semitism, which I absolutely abhor. There's no place for it and never should be. So I think it's best for all concerned that I step down from BBC presenting duties altogether and not do next season's FA Cup or World Cup. The final day of the Premier League season on Sunday will be my last show.
I think they should not let him do that on Sunday because this is the guy, right? So what he tweeted was, or he shared a post by a group called the Palestine Lobby, and it was basically in defence of Zionism, and it had loads and loads of imagery of rats. The Nazi symbol for Jewish people was the rodent, were rats. So it had these symbols, or definitely blatantly anti-Semitic in the most disgusting way, borrowing Nazi imagery. So this guy subsequently said, "I'm really sorry. I didn't have any idea about the rat Nazi imagery, the imagery that the Nazis used in the Second World War about the Jewish people, who, of course, they went on to try to exterminate, killing 8 million of them in the worst crime against humanity ever known." He is pretending, he's insisting he didn't know about the rat analogy. This is a man who just days before, sharing this Instagram post, this disgusting, vile, Jew-hating post, gave an interview to the Daily Telegraph in which the golden phrase he included was, "It's very important to know your history." That's a quote from Gary Lineker just days before sharing this disgusting anti-Jewish post on Instagram. What he was referring to was, you have to know about the attacks that the Israelis made on the Palestinians, on Hamas, before Hamas attacked Israel on October the 7th. He also says, oh, well, if you stay silent about the horror in Gaza, you're complicit in the horror of Gaza. Well, after the October the 7th horror, that abysmal atrocity in which children were not only slaughtered, they were burnt alive in ovens, where their mothers were raped, 1,200 people massacred in a day of true horror. He didn't tweet a damn thing. So does that mean he's complicit in their horror?
I mean, I'm so fed up of the Gary Lineker saga. I don't think he's repentant at all. I think he's had so many warnings, hasn't he? And each and every time, there've been big BBC summit meetings about what to do with Gary, because he's supposedly so brilliant that no one can replace him. And time and again, he's got away with it and come back, and then he's done it again, which just says to me that he no longer needs the job, he doesn't need the money, and why doesn't he just seek a job in politics if that's what he really wants to do? And I've no doubt he's going to be very, very vocal as soon as he's off the leash. I'm just glad that we won't have to have these conversations, Kev, every 2 months, isn't it? There's another Gary Lineker tweet outrage. Hopefully now everyone will just ignore it.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, though. I think that the BBC should say, once again, they've missed the opportunity, our spineless state broadcaster, to turn around and say, look, we don't support anti-Semitism, ergo, Gary Lineker is sacked. They allow him to say, oh, I think it's best that I step down from next season. What they should do is say, no, that's it, mate. You just crossed the line. You're not going on Sunday. You've missed your validatory performance. It's over. Go away. We never want to see you again. But they'll let him do this last match of the day on Sunday, no doubt. But he doesn't seem to appreciate the enormity of what he has allowed his career to descend into. He is leaving the BBC after 26 years. He's a damn good football presenter, good broadcaster, no doubt about it. I'll listen to him about football till the cows come home. But, I don't want his virtue signalling, left-wing North London dinner party circuit political views foisted on me on social media. They're a disgrace to him and they're a shame on the BBC. So he doesn't quite seem to appreciate the enormity of what he's done to himself. After 26 years of golden broadcasting, he is having to leave in disgrace under an anti-Semitic cloud. That's shocking, really, isn't it?
Well, he doesn't appreciate the enormity of that because it's not being presented in that enormous way. I mean, you've characterised it like that, but they've let him put out this video in which he sort of slightly shrug about it all. And so he's successfully spun it to make it look like it isn't that big a deal. As I say, he's had plenty enough warnings. I don't think he cares at all. I don't think he feels he's leaving under a cloud. This is the problem with these lefties. They think they're martyrs. That he won't see it that he's been disgraced. He will simply see it that he's, as he would put it, not being complicit.
Yeah, in essence, all of this lot, the Guardian circuit, the North Londoners, the BBC, Lineker, all of these lefties, people that say that their stance is basically this: I'm not racist, but it's okay to be racist about Jews. It's all right to be racist about Israel. Surely that's okay, isn't it? No, Gary, it isn't. It really isn't. And the BBC should try to learn that as well. Absolute disgrace. As I said before, folks, let me know what you think. How about stop banning Gary Lineker from hosting his last game on the BBC on Sunday? At last, send him a message that what he did on social media, all of his posts, his anti-Israel posts, pro-Hamas posts, frankly, were not acceptable. They really were not. 0344 499 1000. When we come back, a bit more anti-Semitism, Isabel, this time at the Swiss Eurovision Song Contest, where disgraceful scenes unfolded, but the broadcasters tried to make sure that the viewers didn't quite see this. We'll tell you all about that after these messages. Stay where you are.
the great EU surrender by the UK is taking place as we speak, and at every level it sounds like a disaster.
Yeah.
My constituents of Boston and Skegness, my fishermen in Boston, will be absolutely spitting mad on the news that it appears that Starmer, in the face of a request from the EU to extend the deal for 4 years, he said, no, that's fine, have 12, why not?
I voted against my better judgment to reduce the winter fuel allowance because it was the start of a new government, and I thought they deserved some slack. But they continue to be making decisions that I find difficult to justify. And as I said before, if we're going to spend money getting things that are just common sense with the EU, then it is going to lead to very difficult conversations between a lot of Labour.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Still talking to Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, let's talk about Eurovision. It happened in Switzerland on Saturday in Basel. And it looks as if viewers were deprived of seeing some of the more reprehensible scenes. So the Eurovision Israeli entrance, a brave young lady called Yuval Raphael, there she is. She went up and sang her song, and apparently what the broadcasters edited out was this cacophony of boos that she was greeted with. Lest you don't know her story, Yuval survived that horrific Hamas attack on the music festival back on October the 7th, the Nova Music Festival. She managed to survive by, if you like, burying herself under the dead bodies of her friends. She hid under her dead friends in order not to be slaughtered like they were by those Hamas thugs, those Hamas animals. She survived. She bravely sang this song and was assailed by a cacophony of boos and jeers. Some pro-Palestine protesters, for our shame British, tried to storm the stage. Paint was thrown, and so on and so forth. Our host, Graham Norton, merely noted that Yuval Raphael received, and I quote, a slightly mixed reception. Well, the good news is Israel went on to finish second. So the people around the world, actually, unlike the Eurovision people, support Israel, stand with Israel. So that was very heartwarming. Britain, of course, our lot, our girl group, they were called Remember Monday, with a song called What the Hell Just Happened. They came 19th out of 26 and got null point from the viewers. Not a single viewer voted for them. So another lousy British performance, but the anti-Semitism that was raging in Switzerland at the Eurovision Song Contest was effectively edited out so that we didn't know about it. But what a horrible thing for that brave girl to have to go through. And why can't the organisers of events like this do something to protect her from this kind of blatant anti-Semitism that seems to be allowed?
It is extraordinary, and of course everyone just wants it to be swept under the carpet, and it would have been much better, I think, probably to make to have some kind of announcement or something that says this is totally unacceptable. And the ignorance of these people that make these vocal demonstrations that disrupt things in this way. I mean, most of these people, I don't think they've got the first clue about the complexities of the situation. And I'm endlessly bewildered as to how they find it so easy to forget the horrors which began the whole situation that we're in right now. What happened on October the 7th, they seem to gloss over. And I can't quite understand how that is so easy for them, and how every occasion seems to be an excuse to make these completely facile points, and the cruelty of it when that young lady, who clearly was giving it her all in the performance, actually had such a horrendous traumatic experience at the hands of Hamas terrorists.
It's just awful. And by the way, just seconds before he was meant to be presenting our UK jury and taking part in the festivities there in Basel, the Doctor Who star, Nkuti Gatwa, suddenly pulled out. The moment Israel qualified for the finals, he said, I'm not available for this gig anymore. He pulled out. Well, Nkuti, I'm sure you're not anti-Semitic, so stop behaving as if you are. I mean, this is just blatant Jew hatred, it seems to me.
It is, and it persists, and, you know, if anyone thinks this has gone away, I mean, it's periodically still happening in London, and the Jewish community feel utterly beleaguered, and they also feel very abandoned in the UK. You know, the strength of feeling amongst the community, they feel isolated, they feel as if they are more alone than they've ever been, basically. And I'm not surprised they feel like that, because this government has done nothing whatsoever to take a stance or make a stand against the disgusting demonstrations that continue every month, pretty much, sometimes more frequently than that, leaving the Jewish community in London in particular, but also in many other parts of the UK, just feeling persecuted and genuinely frightened.
Yeah, and also, particularly at somewhere like Eurovision, where they consider themselves to be, you know, the kind of epicenter of be kind wonderfulness. You know, we're liberal people, we're lovely to everyone. Well, they have the kind of be kind altruism that when confronted with the Jewish people, with Israeli issues, their be kindness spills over into blatant, disgusting anti-Semitic cruelty. They think that's acceptable. As long as you're being nasty to Jews, that's fine. It's awful to see.
It really is, and you know, the be kind movement, the whole culture of be kind is just like that, isn't it? It's be kind, but only to the type of people that we think you need to be kind to. I think that it's what happens to that singer was disgraceful. I expect that she was geared up for the possibility of it, but nonetheless, it must have been absolutely awful to be up on stage and experiencing that. But it's the wider thing that is so concerning, the fact that all this time on, all we ever hear from our political classes, with a few exceptions, is harping on about the desperate situation in Gaza without any reference to the fact, quite often, that there are still hostages that have not been returned to their loved ones, still people who are suffering and being tortured day in, day out by Hamas.
Absolutely. Release the hostages and then there will be peace. It's pretty simple. Hamas won't do this. So I say Israel are justified in continuing the hostilities. It's as simple as that. But there are all sorts of people who will never, ever side with Israel. But we do. Great to talk to you, as always, Isabel. Thank you so much. Isabel Oakeshott there. When we come back over to America for Biden's health, stay tuned.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
although I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so much to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Go on.
No, Sam Matterface, I take...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In about half an hour, we'll be taking your calls. 0344 499 1000. Has Keir Starmer betrayed Brexit? Has he sold out all of you, all of us who voted leave? 0344 499 1000. Why does he think we want to make all these concessions to Brussels? Why not just not make any? We were better off before today, before the surrender summit. What does he think he's playing at? 0344 499 1000. And also, as I was saying, should the BBC get rid of Gary Lineker before his celebratory, validatory last show on Sunday, his last match of the day, after 26 years? He's having to leave early because of his anti-Semitic posts. He says he didn't realise they're anti-Semitic. He's apologised, but many people don't believe him. They think he's genuinely anti-Semitic. So he's having to leave under an anti-Semitic cloud after 26 years. Should they get rid of him? Should they just say, no, you can't do Sunday? You're off. You've crossed the line. You've crossed the line one too many times. 0344 499 1000. And in a little while, I'm going to be asking, should kids, because they are being taught this, be taught that Stonehenge, you know, our ancient Stone Age monument down there near Salisbury on the plain there, one of the most remarkable monuments from antiquity. Should kids in Britain be taught that it was built, that incredible structure was built by black people? I mean, we don't know if it was built by black people. It could have been. It might not have been. We don't know. We don't know who built it. So why are kids being told it was built by black people? Are our children being taught propaganda by left-wing teachers who are trying to brainwash them? 0344 499 1000. The National Education Union has told its members, its teachers, that they should teach pro-Palestine politics to their kids. Why? They should be given both sides of that. Why pro-Palestine? This is propaganda. This is brainwashing. 0344 499 1000. Before we get to any of that, I mean, we're fond of talking about cover-ups over on this side of the Atlantic, obviously the Southport cover-up, and now we're learning more and more about these Iranian terror prospects. There's a cover-up there. Keir Starmer loves to cover up whatever he can. Well, now let's talk about the big cover-up over in America, the cover-up surrounding Joe Biden's health. Very sadly today, we've learned that the former president, who, of course, basically went senile during his last administration. We saw it. We saw his decline shockingly before our very eyes. Now, we've learned today that he's been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer, which is very sad. Very sad. We wish him well, of course. But the word is, doctors say, well, we kept being told that he was perfectly healthy during his presidency. Well, this aggressive form of prostate cancer he must have had while he was the president. You don't suddenly get this aggressive form. So the Democrats, the puppet masters in Washington, in the White House, covered up for this guy, didn't they, for years. He's not mental. He's not senile. You know, he hasn't got Alzheimer's. There's nothing physically wrong with him. Pack of damn lies. The kind of lies that America deserves a proper explanation for. Let's go across the Atlantic to Chicago, talk to our friend, chair of the Republican Overseas Organisation here in London, where he no longer resigns on a full-time basis, but he's in the States now. Will be back here again soon. Welcome to the show to Greg Swenson. Hi, Greg.
Good to see you, Kevin.
Always a pleasure. Now, let's talk about Joe Biden. Of course, very sad what we heard today. Very aggressive form of prostate cancer. We wish him well. But I'm afraid that that sad news shines a harsh light on what the Democrats subjected the American people and indeed the world to during his last disastrous administration. What we saw patently was a man in a high state of physical and mental decline. But no, time and time again, the Democrats, the puppet masters in the White House told us, no, he's firing on all cylinders. He's physically fantastic. He's mentally all there. Well, there's a new book out now by Jake Tapper called Original Sin, which gives the lie to all of that. There was a massive project around this old geezer, this old guy, to try to pretend to the people that he was all there, but he wasn't, was he? And that cover-up, you know, the fact that the most powerful man in the world for basically 4 years was nothing more than a puppet being controlled by Democrat shadowy figures in the background while telling a massive great lie to the American people, that's a disgrace. You guys deserve the truth on this, don't you?
Yeah, we really do, Kevin. This is maybe the biggest cover-up ever in American politics. Surely rivals, or at least in the same division as Watergate, and it makes the medical cover-ups of FDR and JFK, you know, seem trivial in terms of Woodrow Wilson. I should mention as well, who was that White House was basically run by his wife Edith during the last year or so of his presidency. But this one was particularly outrageous. And it's funny coming from Jake Tapper at CNN. He was part of the cover-up. You know, he was part of the scam, and yet now he's exposing it to a certain degree. I mean, I'm many ways I'm glad he is. But this has been a big week. You know, the diagnosis was announced yesterday. Look, my first impulse was to pray for President Biden and be sympathetic, but given the context of what's going on here with the great cover-up, as the release of this book this week, as well as the release over the weekend of the Robert Hur tapes from October of 2023, you know, that was more than a year before the end of his term. Those results weren't discussed until February of 24, when Robert Hur released his report about President Biden and the document case. But just to recall, Kevin, you know, that he basically said he's guilty, but we can't prosecute because he's a vegetable. And so, and that interview occurred in October of 2023. That audio was released over the weekend. Now we realize why the White House was so adamant about keeping that audio from being released last year.
Absolutely. And you know, there's no doubt that Biden has had cancer for some time. Watch this. This is Biden talking to the American people in 2022. Check this out.
That was accessible. My mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer, and why for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
So there he is, letting it slip that he had cancer. Doctors now have said that this aggressive prostate cancer he's talking about today. He must have known this for some time, dating back to his presidency. In Jake Tapper's book, you're right about Jake Tapper, by the way. This is the left-wing liberal CNN presenter who was pointing the finger at people like me at the height of Biden's obvious decline, saying, why don't you believe the White House? They're telling you the president is fine. Why won't you accept that? Because we've got eyes, we can see this guy's going downhill fast. He was part of the problem, Tapper, but I guess late in life finding out the truth is better than never finding it out. So now he's written about this, and one of the things he said that the puppet masters, they said you can only really vaguely deal with Joe Biden in the White House sort of between the hours of about 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. These are the only hours when he's vaguely compos mentis. The rest of the time he's away with the fairies or he's asleep. So they were lying to us about his tremendous physical decline, because he had terrible back problems as well. I mean, he started walking like a kind of duck that's about to fall over. So he had very bad physical problems and very bad mental problems as well, serious cognitive decline. And these shady Democrat figures sought to make sure that the American people didn't know that. That's a crime, I think.
Yeah, it really is, Kevin. And I think it's important that we find out who they were and, who was really involved in the cover-up, because they were keeping that information not only from the American public, but they were also keeping it from other cabinet members, other people in the administration. So the White House created this facade and this moat around the White House to protect President Biden from even his own people and his administration. So it's really outrageous to know that the world was being run, or at least the United States was being run, by this inner circle who wouldn't give up the power. That's why they wanted him to run again. And it was really important that they keep that cognitive decline, or at least they tried. It didn't work, but they tried their best to keep the obvious cognitive decline from preventing President Biden from running for re-election. They ran with it until they couldn't keep up the hoax, after the June 27th debate, and of course the George Clooney letter in the New York Times. But it's really shameless. We need to know who they are, so we make sure that they can never serve in a position of power like that again.
Absolutely. Let's remember that after that debacle, June the 27th TV debate, where I wouldn't so much say that Donald Trump annihilated Joe Biden. Joe Biden annihilated himself. Yeah. It was excruciating to watch. And let's not forget that after that, the White House did not announce, game's up. Yeah, he's not really all there anymore, as you all saw. They didn't say that, did they? They said he's a brilliant president, but he's such a big guy, he's going to step down and let Kamala Harris step in. It was all a damn lie. This is a friend of this show who appears on the Political Asylum quite regularly. It's Fox News reporter Joe Concha. Here he is reporting on this cover-up.
This was a failed and, quite frankly, pathetic attempt of a cover-up. And if Democrats want the trust of the American people back, they'll admit that Biden was kept in power as a means to an end to defeat Donald Trump in 2024, even if it was hurting the country from all those perspectives we talked about: national security, integrity, standing in the world, you name it. And this is what's dominating the news cycle right now. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's having the best 2 weeks of his presidency, including his first term, in terms of securing all these trillions.
Well, there's Joe Concha summing it up. And, I do think, not to labour this point, but going forward, a lot of people will turn around and say, oh, well, old Joe, Sleepy Joe, that was a disaster. Guy lost his marbles, couldn't stand up, kept falling over, all that, ha, ha, ha. But it's in the past now. But I think America should wake up to this. Something terrible happened there. You must never allow, no country should allow this. You must never again allow a bunch of shady string-pulling politicians to pretend that the most powerful person on the face of the planet, as in the president, is, firing on all cylinders, is a fabulously cognitive guy, when he wasn't. that mustn't be allowed to happen again, and you're going to have a look at what happened during those dark days in the White House, right?
And I think there will be some hearings, some investigations from the Congress on this, Kevin. I think that's important that we get to the bottom of it, because this inner circle, this cabal, were basically running the country. They were power hungry, to say the least. That's why they didn't want anyone to know about his weaknesses, because they wanted to stick around for another 4 years. They probably know also that this was their last chance to be in the halls of power, and it's really shameless. They obviously had no regard for the American people or the country. It was all about their power. And in many ways, I blame President Biden himself and Dr. Jill, as I like to call her. Dr. Jill Biden, was really obviously involved in the cover-up. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. And you mentioned George Clooney. The moment that even the pretenders realised we can't go on with this old geezer Biden like this was when George Clooney, big-time, long-term Democrat supporter, marched into the room. There's the president standing here, marches over to sort of say, hello, Mr. President, and Joe Biden had no idea who he was. And so one of his aides had to say, Mr. President, that's George Clooney. Oh, yeah, hi, George. He didn't recognise George Clooney. At that point, George Clooney thought, I've got to step in here. And that's why George Clooney, to his credit really, wrote to the New York Times and said, enough is enough. Here's to Clooney for that.
Yeah, I agree, Kevin. I think, he came clean right away after that meeting, or as a fundraiser actually in L.A., when Biden did not recognize him. George Clooney is one of the most recognizable people in the world, as a movie star. But also, I think he comes out of this looking pretty good. And I think a lot of the people who were lying about Joe Biden should be held accountable. But also, I think they're going to have a difficult future, because we can really call them out on the big lie or the big cover up. So there might be some good that comes from this, and we get rid of these dirtbags in Washington that are just completely power hungry. So good for George Clooney. He's probably looking pretty good now.
Yeah, it's not vindictive to go after these people who lied about the president's health, about his mental and physical. That's not vindictive. That is actually good governance. You can't allow that to happen, and America must go after those people, and people should end up in the dock. There's one other guy who should end up in the dock as far as the president is concerned, and that's the boss, Bruce Springsteen. Check this out.
The mighty A Street Band is here tonight to call upon the righteous power of art, of music, of rock and roll in dangerous times. In my home, the America I love, the America I've written about, that has been a beacon of hope and liberty for 250 years, is currently in the hands of a corrupt, incompetent, and treasonous administration. Tonight, we ask all who believe in democracy and the best of our American experience to rise with us, raise your voices against authoritarianism, and let freedom reign. This is land of hope and dreams.
I'll tell you something truthful, Greg. I've always hated Bruce Springsteen's music. Clapped out old gits singing rubbish anthems. Born in the USA. Load of old rubbish. But despite that, give him a fair crack at the whip. He's telling his audience how awful President Trump is. Trump has responded by calling him a dried-out prune of an old rocker. And he wants his finances to be investigated. Now, so this is another row, another massive great bust-up between Donald Trump and the Hollywood liberal elite. When are they going to learn that he always wins? He's won 2 elections against them. All of them say, don't vote for Donald Trump, he's terrible. Vote for the Democrats, be liberal like me because I'm a billionaire. People don't listen. They sided with the president against Taylor Swift, and now they're siding with the president against Bruce Springsteen, not forgetting taking in Robert De Niro along the way. When are these Hollywood idiots going to learn that they will never beat Trump on this front?
Absolutely, Kevin. It's a great point. I watched ticket sales go down for his concerts. I mean, I'm sure there'll be enough progressives hanging around that even don't like Springsteen's music, but they'll still go to his concerts to support his politics. But he's been at this for a long time. You know, he had a real cult following in the 70s when his band started, making the rounds in the late 70s. He didn't become really popular in terms of top 40 until 1980. But from 75 to 80, he had a great college campus kind of cult following on the East Coast. And I think he's going to really erode that. People don't connect with the billionaire Bruce Springsteen. They connected with the local pub and college, college campus playing Bruce Springsteen in the 70s. I think he's confirming the disconnect with with the people, and it's not going to work for him. But yes, President Trump will win this battle. He always does. But it goes to show you the absolute disconnection between the Bruce Springsteens of the world and the Taylor Swifts of the world, and people that are working and living paycheck to paycheck.
Regardless of his politics, where are you on Bruce Springsteen's music? My feeling about his music has got nothing to do with his politics. I just never have been able to stand it. I can't stand a note of it. What do you think?
I think, I'm from the New York area, from that generation. So in high school and college, I was a huge Springsteen fan. So I'm admitting that freely right now. But as soon as he turned into a complete progressive leftist / billionaire, I really disconnected him. So I have not purchased a Springsteen product in 25 years, I assure you.
Good. Me neither. Greg, fantastic to talk to you as always. Come on again soon. That's Greg Swenson, our old friend, chair of the Republican Overseas Organisation here in London. But due to Keir Starmer's new tax restrictions, he's having to spend most of his time now back in God's own country, in America. He's only allowed here for, I think it's 60 or 90 days a year because Starmer's cracked down on people of wealth, got rid of. But Greg's one of the rich guys that our government has got rid of, so we no longer get Greg's taxes. What we have gained by that, I don't really know, because there are thousands and thousands of people like Greg Swenson, wealthy foreigners, who used to live here until Starmer got in and started cracking down on them for no other reason, I believe, than a kind of dislike, a hatred of the wealthy, sort of ideological. Right, when we come back, let's talk about what our kids are being taught in school. Apparently, among other lies they're being taught, is that black people built Stonehenge. We have no idea who built Stonehenge. Why would teachers want to pretend that they think it's black people? Why is that? Propaganda, brainwashing, left-wing kids. We will talk about that after these messages.
MPs.
The BBC should have stopped him when I said they should have stopped him, and then we wouldn't be in this bad situation. The BBC looks stupid. It looks like they're going to be without a star that they say they love to keep because they can't find anybody else. You know, they've made a massive blunder here, haven't they?
This is another star, you mean? So this is another BBC
Well, you're the one
star.
that said the BBC don't know how to replace him. That's what you said. Those were your words, not mine.
I know, but you know, the BBC should have been tougher with him.
Thank you.
And with you, Edwards. And with you, Edwards. So you mean you were proved right, Mike?
Yeah, thank you. That's all I needed to hear.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to talk about what our kids are being taught at schools at the moment, or at least what they're in danger of being taught. One is one dangerous topic that apparently is coming the way of our kids. Woke teaching resources promoted to schools claim that Stonehenge was built by black people. And here's another good one, that the Roman Emperor Nero married a trans woman. This has been revealed. These alarming aspects of the teaching agenda have been revealed by the Policy Exchange think tank by an investigation. Also, the union, the National Education Union, is telling its members that teachers must take the Palestinian struggle into the classrooms to teach the kids about the struggle of Palestine. Nothing about Israel or anything like that. This is all misinformation. This is propaganda. And I don't think that's what we want to talk to our kids. Let's talk to historian Rafe Heidel-Manku. Rafe, this is extremely worrying. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that Stonehenge was built by people of colour, built by black people. In fact, we don't know who built it. That's the whole point of the mystery of Stonehenge. And yet we hear that a book that includes this ludicrous, made-up misinformation is being used as the backbone of a teaching course in British schools. The British kids are, as we speak, being taught that black people built Stonehenge. It's not true, is it?
No, I mean, stories like this just make you want to shake your head. As a historian, actually, I want to cry when I hear this sort of stuff, this sort of indoctrination being foisted on our children. You know, what do they mean by black? I mean, do they mean just dark-skinned people? Because there were dark-skinned people who did build Stonehenge, but they weren't sub-Saharan Africans. And when black is being used today in the way that the National Education Union and these books use the word black, they're not referring to, say, Spaniards or Portuguese or people from Tunisia or so forth, which of course, when in the 1600s even, or in the medieval period, when he talked about black people, people had no real idea or comprehension of Africans. So when they talked about swarthy black people, they were usually referring to people from Spain. Even people like Tom Jones from Wales was black, or Heathcliff from Wuthering Heights. And the people that built Stonehenge, well, it goes back to Neolithic times, but the Beaker people were dark-skinned. They're genetically close to the people from Sardinia, but they were all blue-eyed and they had swarthy skin like a Mediterranean, and those were the people that we believe built Stonehenge. But there's a world of difference between somebody from Spain or Portugal and somebody from sub-Saharan African. And this goes hand in glove, of course, with things like BBC's Horrible Histories, which in 2021 put out a song essentially saying, well, the song was called We've Always Been Here. And again, it was a black sub-Saharan African who, again, laying claim to having had a presence in this country from prehistoric times. And it's bad enough watching a dramatization of Agatha Christie to find black people in white tie or morning dress at Ascot in the 1920s, let alone in Henry VIII's time, you're suddenly seeing Anne Boleyn as black. Now, of course, this ideological subversion is taking us back to prehistoric times. It's complete nonsense. We need to understand what's happening here. Our children are being ideologically subverted and brainwashed into this new ideology, the new myths about Britain, that it's always been multicultural, that it's a nation of immigrants, and that diversity built Britain. And all three are complete nonsense.
Absolutely. And the black people building Stonehenge narrative is contained in a book that, again, is being pushed on British school kids. It's called Brilliant Black British History. Also, another aspect of history that's being pushed on our kids that I think we ought to worry about is that the Roman Emperor Nero married a trans woman. Where did they get that from, do you think?
Well, you see, it's a very common thing in if you look at classical history, for example, if you're going to humiliate or undermine your enemies, this is what you would say would happen. And so you often, for example, had other claims that Roman emperors were identified as being transsexual. But that attestation, that accusation of effeminacy was in many ways intended to undermine the person and to say that they were less than a man and less than masculine. Let's be clear here. What we're seeing are the ideologies of today being foisted on the past in order to advance an ideological agenda. And it's essentially to elevate minority cultures and to suggest that in some way they've always been part of our culture. And there's also a way, especially when you look at things, for example, as saying that, diversity built Britain, in fact, that, there's no reason for the British to be proud of Stonehenge or of building the Tower of London or the Houses of Parliament, that all of our achievements actually were a communal effort with other people involved. And what they're doing then is they're trying to undermine and demoralize and essentially negate any symbol, any action, any achievement which traditionally we could take pride from. And it's the same thing as denigrating our heroes. This is all designed to essentially bring us down to a year zero, to sever the connection between us and our pride in the nation so that these new myths can come in.
Which brings me nicely to a very worrying point here. Landmark British victories such as those at Waterloo and Trafalgar, the battles of Waterloo and the Battle of Trafalgar, now go largely untaught in Britain. Research by the policy think tank, Policy Exchange think tank, suggests that as few as 1 in 10 British schools include those famous British victories, those famous British battles in their curricula. That's it. So, I mean, I get the idea. Let's be a little less British-centric with our teaching of history. Let's recognise that great things happen around the world, but not teaching British kids about Waterloo and Trafalgar. That's an outrage.
I would say it's criminal, because what I like to say is a nation ignorant of history is like a man with no memory. If you don't understand how our society, how our country came to be, how our institutions evolved, how the United Kingdom assembled itself, how we got our empire, you can't really understand who we are in the current day. It's fundamentally important that our children are taught the great events and the great men of our history. And I say men because usually it was men. And unfortunately what happens today is our children know exactly what it was like to be in a World War I trench, but they can't name you a single World War I battle. And we need to actually teach the chronological history of this country, how we evolved. And we also need to have heroes, and we need to have great achievements to celebrate, because, it's national identity that helps to keep a nation together. You get social cohesion from thinking that you are part of something bigger. And it is things like celebrating Trafalgar Day or Battle of Britain Day on September the 15th. Knowing, of course, the great struggle to get our freedoms, how we fended off dictators and so forth, helped us as a people collectively identify and come together. That's something we used to know in the past. Instead, today what we have, of course, we've turned love of nation into national self-loathing. We wear horsehair shirts and we beat ourselves about perceived injustices from the past, when actually Britain made the modern world. We have so much to celebrate about this country, and yet our children are growing up wholly ignorant. And because they're ignorant, it's so easy for them to then fall prey to the purveyors of bad history, of fake history, because they're not equipped with the knowledge to identify what's really wrong and bad, such as black people built Stonehenge.
Yeah, it's an abrogation of duty by teachers on an epic scale. The last point, which feeds into the same syndrome, Rafe, I would like to get your comment on, is the National Education Union for Teachers, big union, has encouraged teachers to hold a day of action at schools on Thursday, this Thursday coming up, to highlight the Palestinian struggle for freedom. They're holding workshops as well to train members, teachers, how to advocate for Palestine in our schools. This is politics, this is propaganda, this isn't history, this isn't teaching, this is brainwashing kids towards the Palestinian, the pro-Palestinian point of view. That's all wrong, isn't it?
The National Education Union is the cancer at the heart of our education system. I've said it for many years. You know, when he was Prime Minister, David Cameron said he wanted to go to war with the unions, as Margaret Thatcher had done with the teaching unions, as Margaret Thatcher had done with the mining union. Now, he never did. But I say that's a confrontation that's long overdue, because the National Education Union has called for the decolonisation of our curriculum. You know, we have the most radically left-wing youth in history, and the rise of left-wing youth has mirrored the rise of left-wing teaching. And it's places like the National Education Union and the University Departments of Education, which I call them woke madrasas, that are indoctrinating well-meaning teachers who go into these university departments of education to get taught as a teacher. Then they join these unions, and they're being indoctrinated with this far-left radical ideology, from gender ideology, critical race theory, to what you're seeing now about Palestine and so forth. It's deeply insidious, it's damaging our children. And just think, in 20, 30, 40 years' time, the majority of people running this country will have been educated by teachers who are basically beholden to this ideology. It's madness.
It really, really is. And unfortunately, the Education Secretary is Bridget Phillipson, who is a left-wing ideologue, and she won't do anything about this. But we got problems here. Our kids are being brainwashed, everyone, as Rafe says. So give me a ring, let me know what you think. 03444991000. Rafe, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Rafe Heidel-Manku, historian there, on the manipulation of our children. That's what it is. Left-wing teachers are manipulating our kids. They're brainwashing them. They're bringing them round to their left-wing way of thinking, getting them to not know about Waterloo and Trafalgar, but to be told lies like black people made Stonehenge. It's just not true. It's just unbelievable. What do you think? 03444991000. In a little while, we'll be talking about another one of these unknown foreigners who's been allowed to stay only to commit horrific crimes here in this country. But first, a couple of your calls. So that when we come back after this break.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back after 9 o'clock. We're going over to the west coast of America to talk to the brilliant Kinsey Schofield about the latest developments on the Harry and Meghan front. And lest you forget, this today is the 7th anniversary of their fairy tale wedding back in 2018. I remember it well. Do you remember? It was a brilliantly sunny day, fantastic ceremony. What could possibly go wrong? Well, ever since then, not exactly very much has even gone remotely right, has it? They were going to change the world, the wonder couple. The caring, sharing, golden couple. We're going to change the world, do good works. How's that working out for them? She's flogging jam and he's doing nothing. 03444991000. We're going to take a quick call, then we're going to talk about another asylum seeker that we knew nothing about, who turns out to be a horrific criminal, wishing us all plotting harm to this country while being on benefits, while living in a state-funded, taxpayer-funded migrant's house. Good, isn't it? Another one. It's unbelievable, isn't it? All right, let's go quickly to the phones. Let's talk to Ruth in Newcastle. Hello, Ruth.
Hi there. Good evening.
You want to talk about Lineker?
Yeah, just a couple of points I'd like to raise. You know, who knew of Lucy Connolly and who knew of Gary Lineker with his 1.287, whatever it is, give or take a few hundred, and the influence that these people could have on the public? Let's face it, we're all sheep and we'll follow. So when Gary Lineker leaves, and I'm sure there will be some kind of handout there, and his pathetic speech, you know, oh, I'm going.
Yeah.
How many people who do follow football? I mean, I don't follow football, but I know who Gary Lineker is. I certainly didn't know who Lucy Connolly was, and how many followers did she have then?
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, the potential of that man, whether he stays or whether he goes, you know, well, he is going now. But what about the people who will miss him? How does that affect their judgment on this Palestinian, Gaza, Israel crisis?
Well,
they might be angry, well, this guy's gone, this guy's been made to leave because, you know, he did this. It's
well, arguably, Ruth, you know, I hate crimes. I don't think we should have hate crime laws. But if they are going to exist, I would argue that Gary Lineker has broken them by sharing this vile, Jew-hating, anti-Semitic post on Instagram containing the Nazi rat imagery for Jewish people. You know, this was the spreading of hate. And Lucy Connolly is in jail for inciting racial hatred. So if she's going to go to jail, why hasn't Lineker? Why doesn't Lineker go to jail? Certainly, I don't think he should be allowed to host his last match of the day this weekend. I think he should be kicked out now.
I think it's rather a bit dramatic, the whole thing. I don't see him crying. I don't see him upset because he has plenty of money there. They're both wrong what they've done, most certainly so. However, it's just the influence. This concerns me. That how are people
listen to him? Yeah, they do.
After this,
yeah,
and I wonder, with his 1.4 million, how much of that does he send over to the poor people in Gaza?
I think I can probably hazard a very educated guess. Zero. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. He says that if you don't speak up about the horror in Gaza, you are complicit in the horror in Gaza. Well, he didn't speak up about the horror on October the 7th of what Hamas did. So does that mean he's complicit in that? You know, he's very selective about what he thinks is right to speak out about. He doesn't seem to mind when Hamas, bunch of terrorist thugs, wipe out, slaughter, annihilate 1,200 innocent Jewish people, innocent Israelis. doesn't seem to care about that, but is very, very energised about what Israel is up to now in revenge for that, in response to that atrocity. So, he's got no excuses, and I think he should be fired. But he's leaving the BBC after 26 years under an anti-Semitic cloud. I hope he's proud of himself. Ruth, great call. Thank you very much. Call me again. That's Ruth in Newcastle. We're going to go to break now. When we come back, we'll be talking about this Egyptian guy. He's just a little asylum seeker who came here on a small boat with his wife and 12-year-old kid, allowed to start a new life here only recently. Thing is, though, in his migrant taxpayer-funded house with his migrant benefits that we're paying him, he was busy running a £12 million people smuggling ring. Good, isn't it? We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
The BBC should have stopped him when I said they should have stopped him, and then we wouldn't be in this bad situation. The BBC looks stupid. It looks like they're going to be without a star that they say they love to keep because they can't find anybody else. You know, they've made a massive blunder here, haven't they?
This is another star, you mean? So this is another BBC
Well, you're the one
star.
that said the BBC don't know how to replace him. That's what you said. Those were your words, not mine.
I know, but you know, the BBC should have been tougher with him.
Thank you.
And with you, Edwards. I'm with you, Edwards. So you mean you were proved right, Mike?
Yeah, thank you. That's all I needed to hear.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about Ahmed Abid. He's 42 years old. He came here not so long ago on a small boat. He broke into this country illegally, came across the English Channel with his wife and 12-year-old daughter to be welcomed into the warm embrace of this over-generous country when it comes to these foreigners who break into our country, Abid being one of them. He said, you know, he was escaping war and he's Egyptian. He was escaping war and torture. I don't know what war and torture they've got in Egypt. Not much, I don't think. So quite what his case was, God only knows. But he was allowed to claim asylum and therefore allowed to stay, so he gets benefits. And we are paying for his rather nice flat in West London, in Isleworth in West London, where he lives with his family. What it turns out he's been doing there, while we've been paying for him, while we've been accommodating him, is running a £12 million people smuggling ring. He will have today, we're not sure what sentence he got, but he's been found guilty of this. He's been convicted, the first ever person in Britain to be convicted of smuggling foreigners unlawfully across the Mediterranean. 12 million quid's worth. He smuggled 3,800, nearly 4,000 people from Libya across the Mediterranean to Europe. He's getting nicked for that today. But it proves, doesn't it, that we just don't ask any questions about these people. He's taking our money, he's taking our accommodation, and he's running a people smuggling racket in that accommodation. That sums up the insanity, the dangerous insanity of our approach to these people. You just arrive here and say, can I stay here, please? And we go, yeah, you can. Can we ask you a few questions about yourself? I'd rather you didn't. OK, then, just stay. Unbelievable. Let's speak from the Centre for Migration Control. Robert Bates, welcome to the show, Robert. But this guy's case sums up all that's wrong about our asylum seeker policies. Isabel Oakeshott and I were discussing earlier in the show how, with a dreary inevitability, we're learning that more and more of these Iranian plot suspects, who apparently were plotting to attack the Israeli embassy, they were arrested dramatically around the country 2 weeks ago. We asked, are they asylum seekers? Are they illegal migrants? Oh, we can't tell you that because it could affect the police investigation. Absolute rubbish. They didn't tell us, but guess what? Drip by drip, bit by bit, we've found out now that at least 4 of them were asylum seekers, were illegal migrants allowed to stay. And I'll bet you the rest are too. The government don't want to tell us because it's embarrassing to them. Now we find out about this guy, Ahmed Ibid, who was at our expense, living in an accommodation paid for by us, paying for his family on benefit welfare payments paid for by us, was running a massive people smuggling ring, smuggling people from Libya over into Europe, making himself millions of pounds, 12 million quid, and getting nearly 4,000 people out of Libya and into Europe with all the problems that caused. Just sums it up, doesn't it? Nobody asked this guy any questions, like they never do, and here he is running a crime business at our expense. It sums up our insane approach to asylum seekers, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And I really don't know why we are continuing to give those people that have come into our country illegally on small boats the dignity of processing their asylum claims. We are so caught up in this idea of due process and doing everything by the letter of the law. We've tied ourselves into absolute knots. And the result is we have tens of thousands of people scattered around the country, costing us billions of pounds every single year, and about whom, most importantly, we know absolutely nothing. You know, these are people who are coming in, they have very little paperwork, if any. We have their word that they're legitimate asylum seekers. In most cases, they're not, because they're coming from a safe country. And unfortunately, the taxpayers having to foot the importation of people that are potentially very, very dangerous. I mean, this is, of course, a case that has been rumbling on since 2023, I believe it is. So it's something that, you know, Keir Starmer might try and claim as a victory of his smashing the gangs approach, but it was actually something that was put in train by the existing processes and nothing at all to do with the sweeping, ridiculous reforms that he introduced upon entering government. Unfortunately, we just don't know those people that are coming into this country. And this year, you know, we could see another 50,000 coming across the channel. How many of them mean to do us harm as well? We just don't know.
And were you as shocked as I was last week, towards the end of last week, I think it was Friday, that we learned, you being an expert, you may have already known, but I didn't, that when these asylums, these migrants, these illegal foreigners unlawfully cross the channel, break into our country, they've never got any documents, they chuck those into the channel, into the sea, so they can't be sort of pinpointed as to who they actually are. So you'd think at this point they've arrived, they've got no documents, that the police Home Office officials would interrogate them, quiz them if you like. Who are you? Where did you come from? What's your background? What's your family? Etc, etc. But we learnt last Friday that doesn't happen in nearly all cases. Because such interviews are entirely voluntary. So if these asylum seekers, these illegal migrants, don't want to be interviewed, as most of them don't, by the Home Office or the police, they don't have to be. They just say, oh no, thank you very much. And we go, okay, that's fine. This results, Robert, in only 1 in 15 of these illegal migrants actually being interrogated by the officials, by our administration. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's probably predominantly because the system is just not working. It is nowhere near fit for purpose. I think that many in the Home Office would be quite grateful that so few take up the offer to do an interview, because it actually takes a bit of the burden off their desk. But of course, what happens in the meantime is these individuals get access to advice and services that the taxpayer is paying for, which allows them to actually then develop quite an ornate case for why they should be able to claim asylum. You see the cases of people pretending to be homosexual, pretending to be Christian, pretending that they face persecution in their home country, and that's because they're not being interrogated. We're not really drilling down into who they actually are. We don't really either have these proper databases that are quite as effective as the political class would like us to think. They go on constantly about these kind of Interpol databases that are all-knowing. They're very not. They're very, very sort of superficial entities that actually don't help us at all. And, to go back to my point, the system isn't working. Labour have said that. The Conservatives are pointing to it. We need to reach a point where anyone that's coming on a small boat, anyone that's overstaying a visa and trying to claim asylum in this country just needs to, at the moment, have those applications frozen, and they should not be able to submit them because it's costing us upwards of £6 billion every single year. It's posing huge risks to communities, women and girls in particular, and the British taxpayer, frankly, is already having a pretty tough ride. They shouldn't have to put up with much more of this.
Basically, this government, I mean, in terms of the thousands of people, by the end of this year, it looks to me as if 50 to 60,000 people will have illegally crossed the channel in small boats, broken into our country. The government's approach to these people is so lenient and lackadaisical that no questions asked, they're immediately asked to allowed to stay. Literally live amongst us when, as we've just discussed, some of them may be plotting terrorist atrocities. This guy running a massive people smuggling ring from his taxpayer-funded flat in West London. So they don't ask any questions of these people. As I say, only 1 in 15 even gets interrogated. So this government, they allow nearly 50% of asylum seekers to stay. Until 3 years ago, it was a ridiculous 76%, I do believe. It's now down to just below 50%, still one hell of a lot. So half of the asylum seekers who apply that we know nothing about are allowed to stay. This government is guilty of putting the population of this country in danger with these policies.
Incredibly so. I think the dispersed accommodation policy that's now been enacted and seen these hotels put up and down the country is an incredibly damaging one. The policy should be, and it would be if we'd had proper investment in detention facilities, that an individual arrives in this country illegally and they're taken to one of those centres where within 2 weeks their claim is processed and they run out of kind of judicial review and run out of legal road within 2 weeks, and then they are removed. I think it is absolutely scandalous. And of course, the bigger problem actually is those 50% who have their applications rejected aren't necessarily removed. You'd think it would be kind of part for the course that someone's had their application rejected, well then they're removed the next day. Unfortunately, thousands are still staying after their application has been rejected. And then of course there's the other thousands who put in an application but then just disappear before their application's even assessed as well. And this is the very problem with allowing these individuals to be put up in hotels or accommodation such as this chap. They have complete free rein to disappear if we don't keep an eye on them.
Yeah, really, that's a disgraceful situation. Robert, good to talk to you though. Robert Bates there from the Centre for Migration Control. Kinsey Schofield next on Harry and Meghan. Stay tuned.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
87222, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Although I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so much to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Go on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, in a little while, 25 minutes or so, it's over to you for the rest of the show. Your thoughts, your calls on the issues we've been discussing tonight, particularly the Brexit sellout, the betrayal of Brexit by our treacherous Prime Minister, who seems to think that we want to get closer and closer to the Brussels gang. No, Keir. That's what we voted to get away from. We don't want to get closer to them. We want to get further away. You see, Brexit, it's not remain. You see, it's a different thing. We want to leave. So your thoughts on his atrocious sellout today, selling out fishermen, selling out farmers. We now can sell sausages, though, British bangers on the continent. That'll make a big difference to our trade deficit, won't it? And also, we have shorter queues at airports. We can join the EU EQ. Great. I don't like joining that queue. I really enjoyed not queuing it with the European gangs. Good to be in the British independent queue. But anyway, that seems to be what he's got back for us. Brilliant, hey? Also some kind of access to the possibility of us selling military equipment to the EU and security equipment. Well, we're allowed to do that technically now, but trust me, the French will make sure that we do not do any deals on that front. So ridiculous. Let me know what you think. The EU sellout, the Brexit betrayal, and also Gary Lineker. Should he be fired right now? And also all these unknown foreigners that we're letting into the country. Now 4 of those Iranian terror nationals turn out to have been illegal migrants, asylum seekers, and another illegal migrant, an asylum seeker who came from Egypt, turns out to be running a massive people smuggling gang from his taxpayer-funded flat in West London, and we're paying his benefits as well. What do you think about all of that? 03444991000. How much longer is this government just going to let anyone pitch up and say, yeah, you can live here? No questions asked. We don't need to know about whether you're a terrorist or you're planning some kind of bomb plot. No problem. You just live here. Get together with your mates. Here's some money. Here's your benefits. Here's your accommodation. How else can we help? Maybe give you the bombs or something like that. It's ridiculous, isn't it? 03444991000. Before we get to you and all of that, let's talk about Meghan and Harry. Let's go straight over to the West Coast and talk to the wonderful Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
Yeah, just looking at video of David Beckham enjoying the company of King Charles and Queen Camilla today at the Chelsea Flower Show. Would much rather be with King David than grilled cheese Brooklyn, if I'm being blatantly honest here. Absolutely.
That will not have gone down well with certain elements of the royal family. Harry and Meghan will not have enjoyed that at all because, of course, like Brooklyn Beckham, Harry and Meghan fell out with David and Victoria Beckham as well because Meghan decided that David and Victoria Beckham were selling stories about the Sussexes. That was not true. I can tell you it's not true. I know about the Beckhams. They may be wrong on many issues. They may be far from perfect, but they don't sell stories on people. I know that. So that allegation caused David Beckham to be furious, and they haven't spoken to Harry and Meghan since. So it's all going wrong on that front. But, well, before we get to various other issues, Kinsey, it's their 7th wedding anniversary. Today is the 7th wedding anniversary of Harry and Meghan. I remember that day well. It was a Saturday. The sun here in London was shining fantastically. It was literally a fairy tale wedding where an American actress married her prince, and we thought, what could possibly go wrong? They were the caring, sharing couple, the do-gooder couple who were going to change the world. In 7 years, how has that worked out for them, do you think, Kinsey?
A waste of your tax dollars is what I'd say when it comes to that wedding. How has it worked out for them? Well, I think the fact that Meghan Markle had to celebrate herself on Instagram, knowing that the royal family wasn't going to acknowledge this anniversary, speaks volumes. Meghan constantly celebrating herself because no one else wants to. No one else wants to be associated with them. And really, this was the beginning of the end. And you know, there's not much to celebrate. I really don't. Congratulations. I hope they're happy, but I don't think that two people that are so obsessed with the past and so obsessed with holding on to their titles after calling the British royal family, accusing them of horrible things, I don't think that's a reflection of happiness.
No, and I mean, when they actually staged Megxit, when they did their runaway in 2020 over to Canada and then on to America, of course, they then really started to stick their heads above the parapet and start saying, oh, we're going to do so much good for the world, we're going to run a huge foundation and we're going to do great charity work. We're going to be the great saviours of the undertrodden and the vulnerable. Well, you know, none of that has happened, but they sort of made these kind of noises right from the start, didn't they? That they would use their royal status for good to help others. Well, I would say that it's a fair estimation that these two haven't helped anyone once in 7 years. What good is it that they're doing? I mean, 7 years down the line from those heady beginnings, as you said, Kinsey, she's flogging jam and he's doing nothing. Hasn't really worked out, has it?
I mean, Prince Harry just lost Senabale. Everyone I speak to about the African Parks charity scandal says he should step down from African Parks, that charity, especially due to the fact that his brand is on the decline. Any association with any charity that is being accused of abuse to the extent that this charity is terrible for his brand. And this, he certainly is trying to change public perception with some of the things we've seen lately coming from him, like the trip to New York to talk about online bullying and keeping children off the internet. But the the true terror and barbaric reports coming from African Parks Charity can only hurt his commercial brand here in Hollywood. So everyone I speak to says he's got to step down from African Parks. What do you have left? Better Up? What do you have left? Invictus? God love Invictus. Invictus is the most incredible thing he has. We all celebrate Invictus and love Invictus. Thankfully, the royal family set that up for him. Thankfully, the royal family built that template and created that opportunity for him. But how often does he actually have anything to do there? You know, that's not until next year that we expect to see him with Invictus. So I think that when it comes to their charity work, it's not the priority they said it was going to be. And they've become more of a liability when it comes to their I mean, I'm hearing not only that charities are turning them down, but charities that they remain associated with are debating regularly, how do we get rid of these two? Because we don't like, they're toxic, they don't bring any value to the charity, and they want to disconnect from them.
Well, let's just slightly recap, because you've been mentioning African Parks, just in case people don't quite know what you're referring to. His dubious African charity activities have been unravelling in the last couple of months. Of course, you quite rightly referred to Sente Bale. That was his charity, Harry's charity, formed in the memory of his beloved mother, Princess Diana, and it was to help the kids, the victims, the relatives of people who suffer from AIDS or HIV in America, in Africa. That has gone very, very badly wrong, because the one of the leading light of that charity, Sophie, what was her name?
Dr. Sophie Chandaka.
Dr. Sophie Chandaka accused Harry of using that charity for his own purposes to push brand Sussex. She said that's not what it's for. She accused him of behaving like a white saviourist, like a white colonialist, staging these champagne polo events to raise money with his friends, his posh friends, to raise money for Africa. She found that condescending, and so on and so forth. So he quit in high dudgeon. He's left that, and also his other charity, African Parks, which is all about, you know, retaining the African territory for the African people.
We should stress it's managed by a bunch of white guys who aren't from there. So, I mean, there's already problems to begin with right there.
Well, let's just point out what it is, that basically some of the park rangers, the guards that work for African Parks, have been accused of steaming into local villages. They've been accused of sexually abusing, raping local women. They've also been accused of mistreating local wildlife, particularly young elephants. So that charity is in a mess as well. So his two charities in Africa, one he's left, the other one is very tenuous. So that's all going
He should leave.
Yeah,
the other one, he should leave.
He should leave. So that's all gone pear-shaped. That's all gone. So he's got nothing really left in his life, has he? While she goes around trying to sell fruit spread and cookie dough mixture.
You need to expand Invictus or something, because, you know, you saw how non-committal he was when it came to the Polo docuseries. He didn't do any media for it, to the point that Netflix was livid over that. They were appalled that they would not push this promotions-wise. Talk to Access Hollywood Entertainment tonight, one of the regular outlets that is going to give them, you know, all of the shiny treatment and ask no tough questions. You know, you saw that Spare was written by a ghostwriter, that said that how difficult the process was with Prince Harry. So there are concerns about another book, but really you wonder how ambitious Prince Harry is when it comes to the idea of book number 2. And yeah, I mean, I think that we've seen over the last few years that Prince Harry really lacks ambition. The Vanity Fair article that came out earlier this year said he'd be okay with being Mr. Mom and staying at home while Meghan tries to bring home the bacon, which I don't eat anymore, by the way. I do not eat bacon or ham after I realized how these people, this is one of your next segments, Kevin. You've got to do a segment on the way we treat our pigs. But Megan's
I've done that before. I'm always doing animal cruelty stories. You know that.
I love when you do that. I love when you do that.
I've got to get back on that train. I really should.
You do. But I just think that he lacks ambition, and I don't think that that's what she knew she was marrying 7 years ago when she stood there in front of the world and everything. I think she really thought her life was on the rise, and she is struggling. I mean, the word hustling has kind of a negative association, but there's a desperation in the things she's doing today.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I tried the fruit spread, raspberry fruit spread last week. You know, it's all right. And also spent about 17 hours trying to make the cookies from her cookie dough mixture. I mean, I assumed that you just get a packet and add some water and shove them in the oven. Oh, no. You got to do a lot of work to make her cookies. And they're all right when I finish them. They're okay, nothing special. So I don't think that As Ever has a golden future. I can't see why anyone would go back to As Ever twice. You might be slightly intrigued by the produce first time round, novelty value, but again, you're going to spend $14 on not very good non-jam. Are you going to spend?
Think about the major hiccup when it comes to promotions, Kevin.
Yeah.
The objective in sending Chrissy Teigen, the objective in sending Kris Jenner, and whoever else got. Mindy Kaling, these jars of jam were so you and I, these underlings, these peasants, would look at Mindy Kaling's jam jar and go, well, I want one of Meghan Markle's jams, but they're not the same because that was American Riviera Orchard, and now it's As Ever. There have been so many colossal mistakes and just basic errors, wastes of resources, that there's no way that she's sitting back going, I'm winning right now.
Yeah, well,
I am winning.
Well, there are reports, Kinsey, that after the initial round of sales, first time round, that no more produce has gone on sale, that nobody has been able to buy any more As Ever produce. We had a hell of a job getting it over the Atlantic. We had to get a friend of mine in LA to sort of be the address, so we sent it there, and then she sent it to us here. Cost us in the end, I mean, you think $14 was expensive. By the time we got to try Meghan's, what do you call it, fruit spread, raspberry fruit spread, I think it cost us about $300 or something like that, about 250 quid or something like that. Very expensive, but not particularly good. It's not horrible, it's just unmemorable. So I don't see that business has much of a future. Let's talk about a story that emerged over the weekend, more proof that she's not only a duchess, but she's a difficult duchess. This is how Meghan fell out with her fellow woke warrior, the then editor of the prestigious fashion magazine Vogue here in London, Edward Enninful. Well, Edward Enninful was like that with Meghan until he wanted to do a story with her. But the fact that he didn't want to put her on the front cover sent her into a rage, and they've barely spoken since. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, she actually was working with them to create a piece about her charity endeavors, which must have been really skinny, let's be honest, based on the conversation.
One paragraph.
Yeah, exactly. You know, at the time that all of this was going on, I also believe that she was working behind the scenes with The Cut and likely with Variety. So she was trying to build, through these covers and this media, she was trying to build this PR blitz. And what happened was she was working with them on doing a profile on her charity initiatives back in 2022. They already had two different covers in mind, the digital cover as well as the physical cover. And when they told her, we're not going to be able to give you either one of those covers, she refused to participate any further and pulls basically pulls this piece that they had been collaborating on about her charity endeavors. And to me, Kevin, this is the perfect example of why they struggle today. She does all of her PR placements today in People magazine, in Us Weekly. Remember when her staff all came out to defend her against Vanity Fair's piece in Us Weekly, which is a grocery store tabloid, in People magazine? You used to be a duchess. You used to be a working member of the British royal family. There's no reason that every project you have going forward shouldn't, the scoop shouldn't go to an outlet like Vogue or Vanity Fair. Because of, you know, Prince Harry's proximity to the British royal family and his mother, Princess Diana, there's no reason she shouldn't be associated with those high-powered outlets. I mean, I'd love your opinion. Do you think it's a positive reflection that anytime she has something to say, she says it through People magazine? I mean, when you could say it through Vogue or Vanity Fair, I think it's a reflection of how far they've truly fallen and how they are just D-list celebrities today.
Yeah, the use of publications like Us and, as you say, People magazine to disseminate your positive publicity is typical behaviour by C-listers. A-listers don't have to do it. And frankly, A-listers also, if you're doing a deal with Vogue magazine and Vogue are going to run a piece on you, you accept the deal. You go into Vogue. It's a good publication to be in. Edward Enninful, notoriously friendly to anybody who's woke and right on. But, a journalist, he said, no, you don't warrant the front page. I'm sorry, I'll put you in the magazine, but not the front page. So Meghan walks in fury, Enninful, a bit of a hanger-on, to be honest with you. He's never spoken to her since. So there you go.
Those were also, I don't think she accepted that these were, aside from the fact that, like you said, this is not front page news. This isn't I'm not going to completely reorganize my magazine so that you can brag about your good deeds. That's not that's not a cover story. But there's also, I think that Meghan was angry because she was realizing that these were the consequences of her actions. She no longer had the same relationship she had with him prior because she sat down with Oprah Winfrey and accused the British royal family of racism, to which the editor of Vogue defended the royal family and said, I think she had a difficult time. I don't think it was related to race. He said that publicly.
Yeah.
And I think that he, also, I don't know if you remember this, and maybe this is spelled out more in Tom Bower's Revenge, but Meghan, the Vogue team wanted to keep Meghan's participation in her guest edit. They wanted to keep that a secret because they wanted to build this hype around this episode. And someone kept leaking to the press that Meghan was associated with this magazine, which Meghan had pitched to everybody. We need to leak things slowly. And they were all like, no, that's not the way we do things around here. But then the leaks started and they assumed, probably very likely, I mean, I think that it's highly likely that Meghan Markle or her team were the source. But so they realized that Meghan had been leaking to the media her involvement in this, and there was a lot of frustration surrounding that. And speaking of Us Weekly, there was an interview done here by comedian, I'm spacing on her name, her first name's Heather, but a comedian here in the States interviewed somebody from Us Weekly, and they talked about how they started getting direct insight into what was going on at the palace once Meghan Markle entered the picture. They'd never had it before. They were like, thanks to Meghan, people were leaking like a faucet in the palace.
Very interesting. Now, finally, Kinsey, I suppose that in some ways you could say the good news is for the uneagerly awaited new series of With Love, Meghan, her anachronistic, old-fashioned lifestyle show that basically sank without trace when they opened it a couple of months back on Netflix, when they released it on Netflix. Didn't do very well at all, but they're going to impose on us another series in September. Well, the good news about that is that Harry won't be in it. But the bad news is that Chrissy Teigen is in it. Chrissy Teigen is the model who notoriously told a troubled teenager to go and kill herself.
A teenager that had been groomed by a 50-year-old man and was in an abusive relationship. She was 16 years old, married to a 51-year-old. She said he started grooming her when she was 13. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan are doing all of this campaigning to keep children safe off of social media. And Chrissy is attacking a teenager on social media who's in an inappropriate abusive relationship. It's impossible to comprehend how they're making, I mean, actually it's not. Meghan Markle is desperate. Meghan Markle is desperate. No one wants to do her show. No one wants to be associated with her. The actual quote was Chrissy Teigen is the big name on season 2. That is your big name when you are allegedly friends with Tyler Perry, Gayle King, who's a freaking astronaut now. Katy Perry's an astronaut now too. Oprah Winfrey. You did Oprah the biggest favor, honestly, one of the biggest favors of her career back when you sat down with her and accused a member of the British royal family of being racist. Oprah can't throw you this bone. And it just shows you the hypocrisy and that like attracts like in the universe. Meghan Markle and Chrissy Teigen, America's favorite mean girls.
They are, and they can be seen on the next series of With Love, Meghan, but I'm not sure how many people are going to watch it. Not enough people watched it last time round. Only made about 500,000 in its first run on Netflix, which is pretty low grade ratings. It really is. Kinsey, well, look, as always, brilliant to talk to you, and we'll talk again on Thursday. Have a lovely week. Great stuff. There's Kinsey Schofield, our royal commentator over there on the West Coast. You can give us a call. 7 years of Harry and Meghan, the not-so-magnificent 7-year anniversary of their marriage back on May the 19th, 2018. I remember that day well. Let me know what you think. 03444991000. Also, the Brexit betrayal. You might want to talk about that. 03444991000. And Gary Lineker. Should the BBC get rid of him now? Don't let him introduce his last match of the day on Sunday. Why should he get away with this? Let me know. 03444991000. Plus all of these unknown foreigners that we continue to let in at an alarming rate of knots. All of that still to come. Get on the phone, call me. 03444991000. That next. Stay where you are.
The BBC should have stopped him when I said they should have stopped him, and then we wouldn't be in this bad situation. The BBC looks stupid. It looks like they're going to be without a star that they say they love to keep because they can't find anybody else. You know, they've made a massive blunder here, haven't they?
This is without another star, you mean? So this is another BBC
Well, you're the one
star.
that said the BBC don't know how to replace him. That's what you said. Those were your words, not mine.
I know, but you know, the BBC should have been tougher with him.
Thank you.
I'm with you, Edwards. I'm with you, Edwards. So you mean you were proved right, Mike?
Yeah, thank you. That's all I need to hear.
The great EU surrender by the UK is taking place as we speak, and at every level it sounds like a disaster.
Yeah.
My constituents of Boston and Skegness, my fishermen in Boston, will be absolutely spitting mad on the news that it appears that Starmer, in the face of a request from the EU to extend the deal for 4 years, he said, no, that's fine, have 12, why not?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Don't forget, get on the phone, let us know what you think. Give me a call. Has Keir Starmer, two-tier Keir, has he sold us down the river? Has he betrayed Brexit? His surrender summit today. I mean, did we ask him to do all this? Why has he made all these concessions to Brussels, to the Brussels gang? You know, fishing, farming, our borders, our trade, in return for the fact we can now sell sausages in Paris, and also we can join the short EQ, the shorter EQ at passport control around Europe. That seems to be what we've got back. And the possibility that we can sell Europe some military equipment, but we won't get to do that because France will stop us. So we've got very little back, and instead he sold us out on all these concessions. You know, the foreigners now, the French now, will get full access to our fishing waters for 12 years. The proposal on the table was 4 years. The EU said to Keir Starmer, that'll have to be 12 years. Starmer, all right, then that's fine. Well, it's not, is it? 0344 499 1000. Let's go to the first call. Let's talk to Mark in Lincolnshire. Hi, Mark.
Hi there, Kev, mate. How are you doing, bud?
I'm all right. You want to talk about the Brexit betrayal? It is that, isn't it? It's a massive betrayal.
Yeah, 100%, Kev. I mean, the thing that strikes me with this, you know, this freedom movement for younger people, you know, just looking at this from a logical point of view, I mean, the EU as a thing, they've opened themselves up to one country. We've just opened ourselves up to like 26. You know, it's crazy. You know, we're literally, as far as I'm aware, as far as I'm concerned, we're probably going to be seeing hundreds of thousands turn up within a few years, you know, every year, turning up all the time. And what's going to go, what are we going to have that will be going over to Europe to work? What, 10,000 maybe? 5,000?
Yeah, but what's if you think about it, Mark, you know, what are we talking about with, you know, with our borders? The Brexit's about sovereign borders to such a large extent. And one of the things that Keir Starmer has traded away today is that all under 35s now will be allowed to come here, live here and work here. So there goes that little bit of security. Free movement for under 35s is back. And frankly, most of the people who wanted to move around Europe are under 35 anyway. So basically, he's just gone back on that deal. We now have free movement again. He's also sold our fishing rights down the river. For 12 years, foreigners will be able to fish in our waters with impunity. The original proposal was 4 years. He immediately buckled to 12. Farming, he's done deals on food regulations, on veterinary regulations. We're going to have to sign up to obeying the diktats by the EU on trade in these areas, and so on and so forth. He's just given them everything, and in return, what have we got? I mean, nothing as far as I can see. Can you?
Yeah, there's very little, isn't there? I mean, we're going to compete for some defence contracts that we won't get anyway.
We won't get. The French will make sure we don't get them.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, I'm expecting to see at some point soon, you know, we'll have Frenchmen fishing in our rivers. You know, I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, they've opened up everything else. I mean...
With their berets and their strings of onion and their stripy... I mean, seriously though, I mean, it is getting ridiculous. What did we get back? As you say, Mark, we got the ability to bid for military contracts, which we won't get because the French will make sure that we get them. Yeah. And the other thing that we got back, the only thing it seemed to me we got back was we can stand in shorter EQs at passport control when we're travelling around Europe. We can join the EU queues. Frankly, I've very much enjoyed not being in the EU queues. I rather like not being in them, so I don't want that concession. But even if you do, that's pretty feeble, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm housebound, so the EQ things are absolutely no use to me. You know, bugger that. I mean, the thing as well, you know, I mean, it's just this guy. He's not even been in a year. I mean, he's sold so much of our country out. You know, he's annoyed pretty much every sector outside of the public sector. You know, at this point, honestly, Kev, I really don't take off the table Falklands, Gibraltar. I mean, we're literally going to end up, I think his whole plan, as far as what he thinks of Britain, is he's going to take us back to pre-colonial times.
Well, that's what he wants to try to do. He's an enemy of British imperialism, of colonialism. You know, it's not really a thing anymore. It doesn't have to go around giving everything back. It's just like someone said about Keir Starmer earlier, Mark. His first thought is not for British interests, it's for EU interests. He thinks of Brussels before he thinks of us. It's going to cost him dear, I will tell you that. Mark, good to talk to you as always. That's Mark in Lincolnshire. Let's go back to break now. When we come back, more of your voice notes, your messages, and of course your phone calls. 0344499 1000. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Quick text from Christopher Goff. He says, now Starmer has basically rejoined us to the EU up to the point of signing on the dotted line and making sure we, the UK, benefit from the deal. But we don't. I don't see where the benefits are. You know, really feeble benefits. He's just trading things away to the EU for no apparent reason. I think it's because he desperately wants to be friendly with his Euro pals. Well, we don't want him to be. Who asked him to do this? What else we got? This is from Doug in Dorset. He says, not only was Stonehenge built by black folk, the Giant's Causeway was also built by fairies, and Kia drama has just helped make the UK a safe and stable country. Yeah, right. That's Doug from Dorset. Not entirely. I think his tongue firmly in his cheek, but for good text, Doug. I'll read a few more messages. Oh, here's one about Gary Lineker. Apropos Gary Lineker's final programme, I think the word you're looking for might be valedictory rather than validatory. Hey? Heaven forbid that he's given the chance to try to validate his opinions. Well, he would see it as validatory, and will no doubt use that opportunity to do so. Let's quickly play a WhatsApp voice note. This is Sandra on Brexit.
Hi, Kevin. As a Brexiteer, I'm absolutely furious with this poor excuse of a Prime Minister that we have at the moment, just once again ignoring democracy. He hasn't got a clue about democracy, and I think he's just trying to do everything he can that he wants in his kind of mad world, because he knows he's going to get booted out in 4 years' time.
Such a good point. It's anti-democratic what he's doing. It's against the Brexit vote. He seems to think that's what the nation wants, that we want him to betray Brexit. Hey, Keir, we really don't, actually. You know, that's what the nation voted for. Why would you think that they would want you to reverse it in all but name? Why do you think that? Because you don't like it? It's not what democracy is about. What about the majority of people who voted for it? Massively, actually. 03444991000. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Charlie in Manchester. Hello, Charlie.
Hi there, how are you doing?
I'm all right, mate.
Great show.
Thank you.
Just wondering, I mean, you guys have been saying for a long time, you know, about what the Prime Minister's doing. I'm just trying to work out whether the guy is insane, or actually just a complete and utter traitor to this country. I mean, back in medieval times, when we had somebody who was a traitor to this country, we put them on a little boat, sailed them down the Thames, and he went into a little tunnel, and they didn't come out again.
Yeah. No, well, exactly. I mean, I think the reason he's doing this is because he's trapped in his own bubble. He can't even understand that there are millions of Brits who don't want to get closer to the EU, who don't particularly like the EU. They voted to leave the EU because it's a sclerotic, controlling organisation that works against its member nations' national interests. It was working against Britain's interests. We want to make our own trade deals. We don't want to be told what to do by foreign countries in Brussels. He seems to think, old Keir Starmer, that we do, that we're desperate to get that back. Why do you think he thinks that?
I really don't know. And I mean, the audacity of him to make a deal, to tie us into a deal for 12 years when potentially he's not even going to be in power for another 12 months. I mean, I can't understand what planet the guy is living on. I mean, he's done the pensioners, he's done the farmers, he's done the people on benefits, he's done the small business owners, he's done the fishers.
The waspy women as well, yeah.
The waspy women, you know.
You name it, he's sold them down the river.
You name it, he's shafted them and screwed them over. I mean, how can this man... I mean, we know what they did to Biden when he started making all these decisions that were completely and utterly anti-US. We got rid of him. I mean, why can we not do the same with him?
Well, because we voted him in and he's got 4 more years. You know. That's the democratic system. We're stuck with this guy for 4 years. Nothing we can do.
Can not the 1922 committee, if there's not enough votes of no confidence going in?
Well, if you get enough... Well, the 1922 committee is for the Tories. So they're nothing to do with the Labour Party. And frankly, Keir Starmer has to step down. But we're stuck with Labour for 4 years. We're stuck with Keir Starmer for 4 years. We made the decision. We made our bed. Now we got to die on it.
I didn't make that decision, but yeah, there we go.
Yeah, as I say, we haven't got to lie on the bed. We're going to die on it. We really are. Charlie, I wish I could be more positive, but there is nothing to be positive about. We are in the clutches of this pro-Remainer obsessive who's going to sell us down the river to Europe in as many ways as he can for the next 4 years. Today, I think it was just a portent of worse to come. Really bad news. Charlie, good to talk to you, though. Excellent call, Charlie in Manchester there. Let's go to one of my favourite callers, Herbie in Harrow. Hi, Herbie. What a wonderful day. We're much closer to Brussels now. It's a good feeling, isn't it?
Oh, Kevin, I do not believe it. Listen, this man is a traitor to the British public, I'm afraid. I can't stand to hear the name Sir Keir Starmer. My foot. Kevin, he's destroyed the fishing industry. He's destroyed the farmers. He's destroyed the nation. Can't he see what he's doing? We don't need this type of man running this country. He's gone beyond belief. We're doomed. Even David Attenborough said that the deep sea fishing that these French are doing with the trawling, sucking up the fishing stock from the sea, it's going to deplete the fishing industry. It's going to deplete the fish. We will be paying over the odds for fish and chips in the near future. The man has given away our country. He's given away our freedom. He's given away everything. The man needs to go. What I would like to see, Kevin, is I'd like to see the farmers, the fishermen and the people march now against this man and his policies. We need to make him listen to what we got to say, although I don't suppose he will anyway. I've gone around before with campaign with deaf ears because he doesn't listen to what we're saying.
I know. Well, we voted to leave the EU. That was in 2016. This deal today, is a step towards rejoining in all but name. And I can't understand, Herbie, why this guy thinks it's popular. I mean, he thinks he's really pulled off some kind of triumph, turning around and saying, a much closer relationship with Brussels. Yeah, but that's not what we want. We didn't vote for a close relationship with Brussels. We voted for a less close relationship with Brussels. That's the whole point of leaving, isn't it?
Yeah, Kevin, do me a favour. Invite Sir Keir Starmer onto your programme and let him face the British public. Go on, do me a favour, please. Invite him on.
He's always welcome. I suspect he fears he might not get a particularly friendly reception, but if you're watching, Keir, you're a very welcome guest on this show anytime you like, and you can talk to some of my audience as well, see how you like them as well. Herbie, I hardly know what to say, but I think we've hit rock bottom. I suppose the only potentially positive thing to say is the only way from here is up, but with Starmer, he'll find a way for us to go further down. Herbie there in Harrow. Let's go back to a break. When we come back, more of your calls, more of your messages, more of your WhatsApp voice notes, so stick around.
I voted against my better judgment to reduce the winter fuel allowance because it was the start of a new government, and I thought they deserved some slack.
Right.
But they continue to be making decisions that I find difficult to justify. And as I said before, if we're going to spend money getting things that are just common sense with the EU, then it is going to lead to very difficult conversations between a lot of Labour MPs.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is from Mark Work. He says, fantastic show as always, Kev. Just caught your dislike of every note Bruce Springsteen has ever made. Got me to wondering what your top 5 pop tunes are. Are they 1, Wired for Sound, Sir Cliff Richard? No. 2, Candle in the Wind, Sir Elton John? No. 3, Save Your Love, Dr. Renee and Renata? No. 4, This Old House, Shakin' Stevens? No. 5, Status Quo, Rocking All Over the World? No. But thanks for your input, Mark. One day I'll tell you my top 5. It ain't any of them. My taste is not particularly mainstream, to say the least. But I've always hated Bruce Springsteen. I don't like all those pompous, pretentious, anthems. Born in the USA. Rubbish, isn't it? Absolute rubbish. Bruce Springsteen, not for me. Not his politics. I don't like his politics much, but more than that, I don't like his music. Here's a WhatsApp voice note to Lindsay on Brexit.
Kev, I think it's pretty clear that since the referendum, everybody was shocked by the result. All of the politicians didn't want the result, and they've done their damnedest to make sure it didn't happen. This is just another thing. Macron said we would rue the day we left the EU. The British people did not consent to any of this. This is a huge abuse of power. It's an act of treason. Keir Starmer needs to be stopped.
It is an abuse of power. It's getting elected into power and then ignoring what the population voted for. It's an abuse of democracy. Totally agree with you, Lindsay. Here's Judy again on the Brexit betrayal.
Is anyone surprised Keir Starmer has sold this country down the river? He's done everything since they came to power to just make the living standards of this country worse. We're going to have open borders and align to EU and do everything they tell us. He ought to be ashamed of himself, but he isn't. I think he's doing a scorched earth. He's going to make things so bad, any government that gets in after this, they'll need years to make it right. Is a disgrace.
Thank you very much, Judy. Couldn't agree with you more. I always agree with Judy's WhatsApp notes. They're great. But she's making a very good point there. This is from John in Northampton. He says, now that we know Joe Biden has prostate cancer, which has metastasized into other organs, it is possible that it is spread into his brain as well. That may be another reason why he was not quite right. Not quite right. It's the understatement of the century, but yeah, you could be right. He clearly was not at the races when he was the president. His marbles were going south in a major way. We could all see it. He was also physically in a terrible state, and they covered up for him, and that is a shame on America. It's a stain on American history. They must never do that again. They weren't straight with the world. They weren't straight with the American people. All wrong. Right, let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Norrie in Glasgow. Hello, Norrie.
Hi, good evening, Kevin. Great show again, pal.
Thank you very much.
Kevin, just on theme tunes for the Labour, do you remember the one in Barstow they brought out things can only get better. Things can only get better.
Yeah, well, I suppose that I would agree with that song right now, because surely they can't get any worse. I mean, what he's done today, he's just betrayed us. It's treacherous. He sold Brexit down the river today for no apparent reason. I can't see why he's done it.
I'll get to that serious point now, Kevin. I think the next theme tune should be the one from Britney Spears. Oops, I've done it again.
Oops, I've done it again. Yeah, that should be his theme tune. Yeah.
Sorry, mate. See, when I heard that today, my goodness, number one, a 12-year contract.
Yeah. Well, you know what happened with that? What was on the table? The British said, all right, well, we'll do a deal with you. We'll concede. We'll give you 4 years of free fishing rights. The EU said, oh, no, we want 12 years. And Keir Starmer went, yeah, all right.
I know. But, Kevin, I know it's going to happen. See you the next time, mate. Well, I hope it's not too soon for me. Next time you go to France, I'd like a cod and chips, please. Oh, that'll be €60 then, thank you, sir.
Well, it'll be €60 here as well. But I mean, you know, one of the great concessions that he's apparently achieved for us today is the fact that we can now sell our burgers and our British bangers, sausages, around the continent. On the continent, they don't want our burgers, and they certainly don't want our bangers. They got their own sausages, so that is meaningless. It's meaningless.
Would it not be a better idea if you turn around and say to them, sit down, let's have a serious discussion? Right, 12 years, fishing rights in our waters. However, we want more protection from your borders, from immigrants, illegal immigrants, coming over into our waters.
Yeah, well, you know, them patrolling their beaches might be a nice idea, which they're not doing at the moment. But he needs to get, for the concessions he made on fishing, on farming, on our borders, on trade to do with animal products, veterinary products, the meat products we've just talked about, all the concessions, massive concessions he made today. We didn't seem to get much back at all, apart from the chance to stand in shorter queues, in the e-passport control queues, the EU queues when we go to the airport. Big deal. I mean, it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. He was just desperate to sell us down the river, and he's done it. Norrie, I've got to move on, but excellent call. Thank you so much. Call me again. Norrie in Glasgow. Let's quickly go to Mark in Warwickshire. Hello, Mark. What would you like to say?
Hi, Kevin. I just wanted to say that, and I must apologise, I've not been listening to your show all night.
How dare you? How dare you? No, that's okay.
Point may have been made already, but I think that the Prime Minister has taken us back into a worse position than when we were in the EU, because when we were in the EU, at least we were at the table. When
we had bragging rights, voting rights. Absolutely right, Mark.
We've
totally
lost our
right.
influence. When we moved to a rule taker, we've lost our power of influence, and that's the thing that really upsets me, is the fact that we're not able now to influence things, and we just have to take it on the chin.
It's a really good point that we've become, at least in the old days, sure, we had to be a rule taker, but at least we were at the table as a rule maker as well. Now we're just a taker. We don't get to make the rules, we just have to obey them. I don't think Starmer even begins to understand what he's done to us today. I don't understand what he's been up to. Just trading away a load of stuff for nothing much back in return. It's ridiculous. Mark, got to move on though, but thank you for an excellent call. Call me again. Mark in Warwickshire, and she's in the studio. It's Petrie Hoskin. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How was your weekend? Good?
It was very, very good, yes, in a way.
In a way. Well, you weren't here. That's always the bonus, isn't it?
Well,
have a couple of days off.
No, I just got this dog. I have to go everywhere with my dog.
Oh, I go everywhere with my dogs by choice.
No. Well, I don't mind going everywhere with him. Well, except for it's absolute 100%. I've got no other choice but to go out with my dog and my wife because he's declining.
I know.
So anyway, I spent the weekend going to restaurants with my dog. Thanks very much.
Well, that's all right. All right.
It was fun.
Right, so coming up, I'm going to head straight global to what's happening with Israel at the moment, and this weird idea they've got that they can just put in a little bit of aid for people. It's a drop in the ocean. The UN is calling it the aid that's being allowed through. And then we're going to look as well at Russia and Ukraine.